trust your gut. Have you heard that saying before? You've got to learn to trust your gut. And what we mean by this is intuition. Now, intuition can have some fluffy connotations, can't it? It can be a bit woo-woo. But what we're discovering in the science is actually there is science behind it. Is this idea that actually if we quieten our mind long enough and we tap into what we're feeling and what we know in ourselves, that actually when we make decisions from that particular space, it's actually a really healthy way to live. What we're understanding in the science is that actually that the gut itself is what we now term as the second brain, and that actually it's giving feedback all the time to the central nervous system or to the brain to help us make decisions and to act in a way that's conducive to health and well-being. Unfortunately, because we live in a really busy life that's very fast-paced, we can override that ability to listen to our gut by trying to think about things a little bit too much. And often when we act out of that space, we can make choices that aren't necessarily conducive to our health and well-being. Now, I'm going to give you an example of this, and this actually happened this week in practice. I take care of a gorgeous little girl who's on school holidays at the moment. And, you know, sad for her, the first day of the school holidays, she had a splitting headache. And that was pretty uncomfortable for her. But what she did is she said to her mum, "I'm feeling really tired, Mum. I'm going to have a rest." Now, this is a 6-year-old girl who doesn't normally sleep during the day. She went off and she had a little rest, and she slept for an hour, 2 hours, and she woke up and the headache had gone. Now, that ability to listen and to understand what our body needs in that moment is a really wonderful healing space to be operating from. If we could take the time to really listen to what our body's telling us, often we end up in a much better health state than we do if we ignore that. Sadly, what most adults would normally do in that situation is they would go, "This is really inconvenient. I have things I have to do. I need to get through my day. I need to produce all these different things, or I have these demands on me." And they say, "Well, what do? I need to stop my brain from perceiving the headache, and therefore I can get the job done." So they might take something for that headache, so their brain is not perceiving what's going on. Now, it doesn't necessarily get rid of the headache. It gets rid of the perception that we understand the headache's there, right? And the jobs get done. But what have we ignored? And I guess that's the question we never ask ourselves. What have we ignored? What is our body trying to tell us that it actually needs in that moment? Now, I'm a practical person, Virgo by nature, but I understand that life needs to carry on. But what I encourage you to do is to try and tap into this inner voice and understand what our body is trying to tell us in the moment, and what is it that we can do that's most conducive to our health and well-being, because probably the end result is that we'll be better for longer. It's an art. I understand that. What's really interesting is, as I was researching for this particular blog, is I discovered that Harvard, very astute university in the States, is actually completely onto this. There is a whole body of research that now is being drawn on as they teach entrepreneurs and businessmen and women that actually when we tap into our inner voice, if you like, or our gut, that we actually make much more conducive decisions, or we take actions that are much more conducive to a better outcome. So what we've discovered is that when we do tap into our gut instinct, if you like, we tend to draw on past experience. So what we know has worked, what we know is more effective. We tend to then also understand, we assess the current situation, and we do this all in a split second. What's going to be best to make, what decision is best to make right now, given this current situation, knowing what I've known from the past, and then a really important component, and what's best for me in this situation. And if we can trust that, they understand in the business world that actually that makes much better business decisions. It gets a much better business outcome, and people are more satisfied at work. Isn't that interesting? So not only do we understand this from a health perspective, but we understand that actually in business, we now are teaching our top entrepreneurs and businessmen that women, trust their instincts. They must learn to trust their instincts. My argument is that all too often we shut that down. We shut that down because we want a quick result, and the quick result doesn't always win the game. Think of another fable. I love my fables. The tortoise and the hare. And what we understand with this fable is that the hare, which runs really quickly and much more fast around the track, ends up running out of steam and goes to sleep. The tortoise that steadily plods along behind in a really consistent way wins the race. So I challenge you to take a breath, to listen to your gut, to assess the situation, try and learn what your body is telling you, and then act. And I quest you with this, and I'm sure you will find you will be happier, you will be healthier, and you will be more in balance. Good luck.